Hello, folks. My name is Kyle Smith. I'm a clarity consultant, and you're joining us on the Online Prosperity Show. And we're going to be talking about my practice, NLSE, Neuro Linguistic Somatic Experience. We're going to be exploring my story of how I went from culinary chef to personal trainer, online nutrition coach, to now clarity consultant. Going to share how my problems became my passions, and Prosper's just going to bring the good vibes as always. Thank you for coming today. Enjoy the show.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got a guest whose journey is as inspiring as it is transforming. Now, Kyle, how are you doing, my man?
Dude, I'm solid. I'm having a great time. I'm on a Sunday, you're on a Monday. We're crossing the bounds of time to have this conversation.
Tell me about that. I hope that time sort of like edges well because I'm really working on my beard, man. I really want it to be as luscious as yours. I've got beard envy. Can you handle?
Yeah, I can handle it. I receive it. I appreciate your words. Thank you. I grew it myself. I don't trim it myself. I don't trust myself enough to take care of it. So when I go to a barber for that stuff, to keep it fresh.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I love it. But for those that are watching right now, people might just be thinking, where's this old bromance coming from? Let me take you out of your misery and also that proverbial internet rock that you've been hiding from under. Because if you haven't heard of Kyle Smith, then you're in for a treat today. Now, he's had a journey, like I said, that is very inspiring and also transformative, not only for you, the listener, but it also has transformed the man he has become today. Now, he is a clarity consultant that comes from Edmonton in Alberta, Canada, and he's the developer of Neuro Linguistic Somatic Experience, NLSE, for those at the back of the room, which is a unique blend of story work and breath work that's designed to help individuals overcome the victim mentality and actually unlock their full potential. But before he went on this crusade and found clarity himself, he spent over 13 years as a fitness and nutrition coach while he was guiding clients through physical wellness and helping them eat better and feel better. And prior to that, he had pursued a culinary career where he dedicated over 5 years of his life in the food industry. So this is a person and a man that knows a thing or two about everything that he's now bringing to the table here. You know, some coaches and consultants that I talk to just go on a weekend, excursion and walk over some coals and on the way back buy a computer and call themselves a coach. That's not Kyle and the guy that we're going to be hearing from. So his mission is to help you defeat that victim mentality through a practical mindset coaching system that is tailored for coaches, teachers, leaders, and influencers. So if you're feeling like you're being attacked or your way of being has been taken away because a said platform has been taken off the internet, now I want you to listen closely to what we're about to talk about today with Kyle, because he actually empowers his clients to take action, gain control over their lives, and optimize their mental well-being. And there's also an interesting fact that I dug out about Kyle. He has undeniably good vibes, which is a good testament to his positive outlook and the commitment to his own personal growth. So in today's episode, we're just going to dive into Kyle's work, his diverse clientele, the methods that he uses, and how you can actually connect with him. And we're also going to be looking at the invisible lessons that he's learned along the way so he can come through and, help you be, do, and have a happier existence. Now, Kyle, I could go on on about everything else that you have done, and I could make a big mess of it. In fact, I've actually started. Why don't you take me out of my misery? You've had a diverse career. You started in the culinary world to fitness coaching, and now Clarity Consulting. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, and what actually inspired you to get started, on these endeavors.
Absolutely. So it started with, well, overall, it went, I turned my problems into my passions. I recognized where I was in a particular state of being. I didn't like who I was at that point in time. I didn't have much respect, much compassion, patience. Uh, I I worked against my ambition and the things that I wanted, and I was negatively impacting the people that I was spending time with. I was not the best in relationships. And so I found myself with a clean slate, and that's where I didn't know how. However, I made the decision that I wanted to change and be someone that I appreciated being, that I wanted to respect, that I wanted to admire. So that took about 10 years of development. And through the practices and the modalities that I've gotten to experience, whether it's counseling, therapy, plant medicines, whatever it could be, I found that the things that had the biggest impact for myself when I was using it as a practitioner to change my own narrative was story work and breath work. So we got the body and then we got the mind. So story work is the mind, breath work is the body. And I put those two things together to get us to neuro linguistic somatic experience, where it's a top down approach, where it's an outcomes focused practice rather than a problem focused practice. It's a mindset gym for mental fitness. And that's that's the main key to it is I I believe that I could go back in time to Kyle of January 1st of 2015, and I could say to myself, I have the tools that I can help you out with, bro. Because I made a Facebook post like, help me out. I'm sure many people have seen one of those. And I had a lot of information, a lot of time, and I believe that I'd be able to help that kid. And it's pretty cool. It's a cool feeling.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us on this journey, Kyle, because with what you've said, you literally turned your problems into passions. Not a lot of people can say that. Other people drown in their problems, drink their problems, eat their problems, and everything else that comes along with it. Now, it takes a certain level of person to see that I can use these problems and get solutions out of them. Did you have people around you that would have called you out on certain things, or was this just an internal drive that you had? Because fish don't see the water that they swim in.
I think it was a beautiful dance of both my own internal recognition that I wanted to make changes. I wanted to explore my curiosity, and wanted to, I was willing to explore my comfort zone and my pain threshold because I wanted change. And then along the way, supportive partner, my lady, she's like freaking a rock. And she was with me, like, experienced me through that whole period of time as well. And so that was pretty, like, absolutely. And then my fellowship, more or less, is how I like to call it. So the people that I make space for, the people that have supported me, they've definitely been supportive and honest along my journey as well. And in a very nurturing, compassionate, with a nice drizzle of judgment tossed in there to keep me in track, to keep me in line.
No, part
And
of the thing.
mentors as well. Definitely
Abs-
mentors.
Absolutely. We always have people that we look, up to, that will showcase and show us the path where we need to be going and things of that nature. But we also need to be receptive and open-minded to want to learn. Now, you did mention, part of your journey didn't have respect or patience, and you didn't maybe respect yourself, and you were not patient enough to get the sort of results. Can you maybe take us back to those days? Because I really want people to have an understanding, because sometimes people think it is what it is, and I'm probably never going to change, but you managed to extrapolate yourself from all of that.
Absolutely. It would be, well, one part would be I understood that change was possible. If someone doesn't think that change is possible, then they're not going to try to pursue it. So I've seen in my environment, as well as from people that I looked up to, how change was possible. If I'm observing someone who is in a similar circumstance as I was, how is it that they got to the outcome that I now desire? And that way you get to learn the mistakes without, no, 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 you get to learn the lesson before making the mistakes. So if you have a mentor, you're able to fast track progress. Um, and if someone doesn't want to change, or if someone doesn't see or have an inclination, or if they don't have the people around them to support them, then they won't change very much.
Mm, I like that. You see, and I also respect the journey that you've been on, Kyle. Having come from being a culinary expert, I would just say chef for those, for lack of a better term. You see, you know what a chef does? They
Mm,
transform a banana into a gift,
hmm
right? So they give a banana transformation and put ingredients and make it into a piece of banana bread that somebody can then pass on as a gift to somebody else. So would you say that unfair advantage of you seeing produce transform from its raw entry point into something exquisite? Because I've seen some foods that are tantalizing and mouth-watering and just really changes the situation and experience that somebody has. But if people knew how they were made or where they came from, they literally wouldn't see it in that sort of way. Is that
hmm
is that maybe part of the unconscious way that you would have seen that these raw materials can, or this raw Kyle can literally transform into something of note?
it would actually go back even further. Because when I was a kid, what I wanted to be when I grew up was a comic book artist, and so I would draw often, and I got pretty good at drawing. And every once in a while, I'll still draw something because it's something that's fun. That is not my normal routine. And the thing with creativity, so having an artistic eye or creating a meal out of a variety of ingredients, or putting together characters in order to get a website to articulate your message the way you want it to. These are all outlets of creativity. So I believe that it's actually my creativity that has influenced my desire for a comic book artist, or pursuit of being a chef, or pursuit of personal training, or pursuit of clarity consulting. So I think it would go to the creativity and wanting to explore that creativity and explore that curiosity, because I like to go into things to understand more depth. That's why I like podcasts, for example. We get to have conversations that go into more depth rather than surface level automatic responses. It's something that has depth, and with that depth, more creativity can be explored. Things can be put together. And so it's molding the mind. Seeing the it's seeing the art, or similar, actually it'd be similar to Michelangelo and the statue of David, where someone said, how did you see the statue of David in the granite? I'm not sure if it's granite, I'm paraphrasing this. And he said that David was there the whole time. I just chipped away. And so I take it with that frame, where it's something that's already there and you can mold it and you can shape it. So I think it would be my creativity, and then I'm just a little artsy, and I put more utility to my artsiness.
I can imagine. I mean, obviously, if we're sticking to the cooking and chefing side of things, peeling a potato and then cutting it into slices, then it makes French fries. If you cut it in a whole different way, it gives you mashed potato. If you chop it up in a whole different way, it gives you a potato salad. And it's just
Hmm.
how you utilize that one particular ingredient, knowing what it is that you're after. And yes,
Hmm.
it is the chipping off the marble and removing the parts that we don't want, and the statue would be in there all along. But that takes, like I keep referring to it, it's a whole big process and things of that nature. And in the world we live in today, it's not easy to have the patience to take away the parts you don't need, whereas social media is there just adding more parts that we never thought we needed, and not knowing, do we need this to create the statue that we're after?
Mm. I would actually, I'll rebuttal that one. I'll rebuttal that one. I actually don't think that social media has much to do with it. And I do think that there is narratives that are taught to us. However, I think that we willingly accept and adopt other people's narratives rather than questioning our own and figuring out our own. And we also take a tool and we misuse it rather than use it intentionally. So doom scrolling is unintentional use of a phone. Curating your marketing and figuring out which accounts are in alignment with your particular niche and studying their content because they're slaying it, that is intentional use of the exact same tool. So I think that actually goes to introducing how to think about our thinking rather than being told what to think. And so, because you mentioned it was hard to do, and I actually counter that, I actually think it's easy to do. And it's in removing distractions or the things that we are told to care about. Because what I see as well, this is just a hypothesis, I see that there is the expectation that everybody should care about everything at all times. And I actually refute that. I think that we should care about the things that we're actively participating in the solving of the problem. Because I think that that actually puts us as a practitioner, a participant, rather than adopting something and having a sense of self based off of a lie. Because it comes down to our behaviors that create the character, and our narratives can help or harm that. And so when we change the narratives, we get unstuck, we declutter the mind, make room to throw the party, then we can incorporate celebrating the wins, celebrating the progress. And then when we recognize that we actually have a positive self image, or I like to say mindset, and I define mindset as the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves or our opinion of ourselves, we can have a higher or lesser opinion of ourselves. We have that control, and we have that as a reference point. How's my mindset today? I have a really high, I'm thinking really highly of myself today. I'm feeling pretty badass. And then it's the day, it's like, how am I feeling today? I'm feeling pretty lesser about myself. What is the next decision I could do to feel better about myself? And so it comes down to how much of a role does the subjective, the individual, want to play in creating their own story? Because I think that people are fearful of stepping into self authority and being the director of their narrative. And so I think that by saying it's society's fault, it's projecting rather than reflecting how we're contributing to preventing our own progress.
I like that. Now, Kyle, you see, things that you're mentioning obviously are valuable. And to a lot of people, they're just thinking, how will I implement that? Because in the world that we're living in, everybody just wants something that works for them or has worked for other people without putting context
Mm-hmm.
as to, does this work for me in the same geography as I am? Like the first thing that you mentioned was, hey, you are in the future and we're sort of in the past. You know what I mean? Certain things would only work on a Monday. And if you see me doing certain things right now, you already start feeling inadequate, thinking, wait a minute, why am I not at where he is? Without putting into context that
Hmm.
there's a big time difference. So it could be a time
Sure.
difference as to real time difference, or time difference from where I am to where you are, and
Hmm.
situation like that. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people are experiencing anxiety and burnout, because they are using a frame of reference that is not who they are or where they're headed to, and everything now just sounds overwhelming. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, yeah, I agree with that because that's once again an adopted desire. It's someone else's expectation for them to accomplish something. And the anxiety, because I think there's more than one type of anxiety, because this type of anxiety would be anxiety of incongruence. So they're behaving in a way that's out of alignment with what they want to behave as. So they experience a resentment, they feel anger, frustration, they're breathing high and tight. High and tight, good to fight, low and slow, good to flow. So if we're breathing high and tight, we're going to get all wound up. So if someone is experiencing anxiety, one thing would be, is that your goal that you want to accomplish, or is it someone outsourcing their goals and expectations onto you? That's one form. Another form of anxiety is the anticipation of future pain. So that's looking into the future and experiencing fight or flight from a story that doesn't exist. So we're pulling from the future to the present. And the counter to that is to simply come up with a different outcome. So we want to limit our limitations and reduce our resistance. So limit the limitations that's preventing us from progressing. And then by reducing the resistance, which is what's inspiring us, it's when we're moving outside of our comfort zone, we're going to experience resistance. And it's rooted in fear, self-sabotage, or procrastination. I would also say that procrastination is the act of participation in preventing progress. Then there is rejection, and then there's judgment. Those are the four things that we often feel resistance towards. So if we figure out which of those things it is, then we can counter it. Because there's a difference between there's thoughts will come and go. And let's say I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and the first thought I have is, you suck, or I suck. I could do one of two things. I could do the first one where it's, you know what, you're right, I do suck. Or I could do number two where it's, that's not true. Like, you showed up with some evidence to that is hinting that I suck. However, I also have a stack of undeniable evidence that I am who I say I am. And so we counter and rebuttal our own thoughts that way. And then the third form of anxiety that I also see is or observe is uh, it's a miscommunication where we are told it's anxiety. However, it could be excitement. So let's say you're a kid, you're hanging out by the roller coaster, you're feeling your heart rate increase, you're feeling jittery, you feel sweaty palms, you are getting a little like antsy, and then you have two different adults. The first adult says, "Oh, you're experiencing fear," and then the other adult says, "No, no, 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 you're experiencing excitement." They're the exact same physiological responses, and the narrative will will dictate our behavior.
You know what I love about that is, just 3 weekends ago we went skydiving, a bunch of boys. Something that
Sick,
we
sick.
some, something we wanted to do right at the beginning of the year. And I was actually thinking to myself, because everybody else was really scared about that whole jumping out of a plane, and a perfectly good plane. And something occurred to me, which I don't think a lot of people have explored. When you go skydiving, you are in tandem with somebody, and that somebody is somebody's brother, somebody's husband, somebody's dad, somebody's granddad, or whoever it is in relationship to the people in their life. And every single day, that guy kisses his wife, his kids, his loved ones goodbye, knowing he's going to come back home. He's got a different perspective on what that experience is, because of the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that he has, because he jumps out of the plane every single day. For you, it's a once in a life endeavor. So in and of itself that then creates those feelings of, oh my God, I'm so scared. Whereas he's like, yeah, let's jump. And you know what I mean? When you spoke about that, I was just looking at that difference in life and stuff like that. But how do you then, because not a lot of people are exposed to the things that happen to us every single time. I mean, unless it's these days when we're experiencing once in a century or a decade things all coming all at the same time. But in real life, we are not supposed to be exposed to quite a lot of things. How do you then help people get past that?
By reducing their exposure.
Hmm.
So it would be, so let's say, for example, if it was a social media use thing, I would ask them, and this is just be how I would go through it on the fly. It would be, okay, for social media, it would be figuring out which content you actually want to consume rather than mindlessly consume. So you're catering your content consumption and you're training your algorithm to shoot more of that information to you. And so if you look on my Instagram, it's pretty chill. There's camper van stuff because my lady and I want to go camper vanning, Dragon Ball Z stuff, some anime stuff, some cartoon characters, superheroes, some workout stuff. It's pretty, and it's exactly what I've looked at for. I created that algorithm. And
Wow.
so that's a way to train the algorithm to feed us information that we want to consume. And so then it goes the exact same for everything else is where are the distractions? Where are we pointing our attention? Because we only have a finite amount of attention. We only have a finite amount of time. So where we allocate, where we invest our limited time, that's going to be an indicator of where our focus is, of what's important to us. And when we take in what our day looks like, what our average day is, I actually like taking in what does every hour of the day look like over the course of 7 days, because then you have a true, honest uh, view of what is getting the most of your time. It is what is the most important things. And then it's deciding, are these things important enough to stay in my calendar? And if not, remove them. And that removes distraction. Because I think that because we have an evolutionary mismatch between our evolution and our environment, we are evolved with scarcity brains, where we have the thought of more resources equals more survivability. Back in the day, we would create daggers, we would create shovels, we would create pelts. We would then create more, so we have more resources in order to sell or trade for goods and services. Nowadays, we have a lot of abundance for the most part, depending on where you're living, of course, obviously. And we have that scarcity brain. So we're in an abundant environment where I'm in Canada and I can go get bananas, pineapples, apples in -25 weather.
Mm.
So it's conceptual survival, not physical survival in that part. Hmm. And
Absolutely.
so when we decrease the distractions, then we actually see what resources and information and how we want to actually behave.
So we are, you literally are giving us permission here, Kyle, because we're wired for a world that no longer exists. So maybe
Yeah.
can you explain what neuro linguistic somatic experience is and how it actually helps other people be, do, and have a happier existence?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I already mentioned before, where it's an outcomes focused practice, and that is thinking of where we want to go to influence our decisions today. That's a part of it. It's a top down approach. So I'll go through the separate parts of neuro, meaning of the mind, and specifically mindset being the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves or our opinion of ourselves. It also goes into the nervous system, and that's the transportation of information from the mind to the rest of the body. That's where we also hold emotional stories. We hold our emotions in our energetic body there. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. And then we go into linguistics, And that's what we say, think, write, and how we breathe. Because the breath is the language of the body. I mentioned earlier, breathing high and tight, you're good to fight. Breathing low and slow, you're good to flow. So it's regulating that breath. So if I'm sitting here and I'm just hanging out with you, and I'm in my little office here, we're having a good time. And if I felt myself upregulated, it would be an indicator that I'm breathing high and tight in the chest. And so I would think to myself, it's like, whoa, 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 I'm safe. There's no conflict here. There's no threat. I'm going to survive. Even if even if either of us were rude to each other, we're still going to survive. And so, and thankfully, obviously, we're both good vibes. So I'm grateful that we're not. Hypothetically, in an alternate dimension, you know. So,
That's it. Okay.
uh, yeah, exactly, right. And so then we down regulate. We take a breath in. We're communicating with the body through the breath to allow it to relax. And then how our language as the what we say, think, and rate. I think of going from the fitness part, how there's macronutrients, carbs, fats, and proteins. These are the building blocks of the body. The quality of the macronutrients is going to influence the quality of the body. How words are the ethereal macronutrients of the mind. When we feed our mind quality words, we're going to have quality thoughts. When we feed our mind crap words, we're going to have crap thoughts. And so when we're mindful and thinking about our thinking, similar to training our algorithm to only show us what we want to see, we're changing our narrative architecture to work for us rather than against us. And so another fun point on this one too is the word abracadabra. When I say abracadabra, what do you think of?
Magic. Revealing,
Yeah,
you know,
brother.
like, it's a magic word, you know, yeah.
Exactly. And so abracadabra is old language. It's about 2,000, 3,000 years old, and it's Aramaic. And abracadabra translated to English is with my words I create. Now, if we look at the definition of what a spell is, spells, casting spells, the definition of a spell is a word or series of words of great influence. So when we have with my words I create, and we put those together to create great words of influence, it's going to structure how we frame reality. So if someone's not creating their own narratives, they're adopting other people's narratives. That's when I think societal expectations, people are saying, oh, it's society's fault that I am the way I am. It's like, no, no, no. You're ignoring the reflection. You're ignoring how you're contributing to it. And so it's changing the frames and being able to see how you want to see in a helpful rather than harmful way. So that's linguistics. And then somatic is of the body, physical body, and energetic body. That's where we get the breath work dialed in. We get to upregulate and downregulate. And I think of the breath as also uh, taking someone from being a thermometer, where they're reacting to this internal external stimuli, to being a thermostat, where they're adjusting their internal temperature to their desired liking, their Goldilocks zone. So once again, it's like high and tight, down regulate to low and slow. And then going into the energetic body, the emotional body, that's where we hold our stories. So our physical body has a passive approach. We cut our finger over time, it's going to heal itself. We have an autonomic nervous system. I can't sit here and think, okay, hold on 2 seconds. Okay. Okay, I just stopped my heartbeat for 2 seconds. That was wild. That's not going to happen. I can influence my breath, and that's about it. And so the emotional body is different. It's not time bound, it's timeless. So that's why we can experience something when we're a kid and we can still experience it 10 or 5 decades later. So we hold it in that emotional body. That requires active participation of processing unmetabolized emotions. And that's how we flush out the negative narratives to allow to create room for building up the narratives that we want. Not society's narratives, our own subjective narratives. Not our parents' narratives, not our teachers' narratives, not our politicians' narratives. Nobody. It's like, what is my specific narrative? And who do I want to be in this game of life? So then that's the somatic aspect that's of the body. And experience is that it happens real time. People feel the changes in the time. They feel the future coming to them into the present that they're excited for. They feel themselves release the past and let go of the burden of carrying it on their shoulders. So that's NLSE from a top-down approach. That's how we
I,
roll.
I love that. I love that because it is self-regulating. It is self-awareness. It is really having an understanding of who you are, where you're at right now, and where you want to go, and then literally just bring it all together. But obviously, the people that we have right now in this world that we live in have been trained to be dependent on some sort of authority to tell them the next step, and that is something that
Mm-hmm.
is systemic. And I quite find that very few people will be able to understand that they can self-regulate, they can self be their own self authority. I mean, you and we're literally paid by people just so they have somebody to blame. You know what I mean? So, you
I would challenge. I would challenge them. I would challenge them for sure. I'd be like, are you sure? How much? Are you
but
sure as well? Let's look at the
that's
stats. Let's
that's the
look at
reason
the
why
data.
people yeah, that's the reason why people end up working with us, so that they
Mhm.
shift that blame onto somebody else if it doesn't work. So for somebody who's probably
Mhm.
listening to this, what are some of the common signs that indicate that somebody's really struggling with this mindset of self-ownership or self-authority, and how does this NLSE sort of address it?
It would the key thing would be well, the main thing that came to mind is if they are pointing the finger outside of themselves as the ones responsible for where they are. I think that whatever we point our finger to is the one that has the power because we gave it to them. And I think that although it's not something that's taught, I believe that we are going into a time of a neo renaissance of thinking about our thinking and being able to create through exploration and to provide individuals with the tools to do so. And as time goes, I believe it's going to become more. I believe that there's going to be more people thinking for themselves through a frame of how they can contribute to society. That's the thing that I think of as well. So I think that although it's something that is taught at first, I don't think it's something that's going to last very long because if we're only told what to think rather than how to think, then that has a negative ROI on the future of any country because we're not in a point where only listening and not doing is supporting anyone. I don't think it's, which is cool. Actually, and I'll say this too, if someone wants to go down the route where it's a little bit more chill, a little bit more safe, and they feel cool with that, then absolutely do that. I think that the important thing is for someone to pick the path that they want to be on. So although I think that being my own autonomous individual and holding myself responsible to doing the things to get me where I want to go, I'm happy with that because that's where I want to source my accountability. Other people may want to source their accountability outside themselves and have a boss instead and support someone else's vision, which is totally cool too. So I think it's fun and something that helps in with the practice that I do is to introduce a way to make better decisions or not even better decisions, just to make decisions period. And I introduce a soft talk and solid talk. So soft talk is indecisive, unclear, ambiguous, and solid talk is clear, concise, and decisive. And so an example of soft talk would be I might make it to the party for 5 p.m. I could make it to the party for 5 p.m. I should make it to the party for 5 p.m. I kind of want to go to the party for 5 p.m. And any statement that could be followed up with a question are you or are you not going to the party is not said solid with enough, it's not said solid enough. So we remove the soft talk, then we have options. I'm going to make it to the party for 5 p.m. I'm not going to the party, or I'm undecided. I'll let you know in a bit. And what will this will do is it'll microdose decision making. We become more competent in our decision making in the small things. And what happens is as we get better and better and better and better at making decisions, we go from smooth decision making with the small things and we go to trusting our competence and our confidence in making decisions in the things that are bigger. Because we don't go from making no decisions to big decisions. We trust our decisions in between. And so by removing that soft talk, by removing that ambiguity, then we're actually giving ourselves direction and we feel good about ourselves because we're taking the lead. We're being the authority. We're writing our own script. And so when we actually create that skill or develop that skill and we're microdosing decisions and we remove that soft talk, replace it with solid talk, then we open up possibilities and opportunities.
And thank you so much for that. Now, Kyle, somebody might be watching this and saying, I don't have such a luscious beard like Kyle, or I'm not as handsome as he is, or I can't even boil toast to save my life. And obviously with all these things that you're talking about, they're automatically thinking, is this going to work for me or on me? And, obviously story work and breath work are really integral to your practice. Now, my question to you is, does this work on other everyday humans, like us, or does this only just work with, people like yourself? Could you maybe share a success story where these techniques actually led to a significant transformation for somebody else other than yourself? I mean, you don't have to mention names or any identifying information.
Cool. Uh, to answer the first part, yes. Anyone that has words in between their ears, this works with. Anyone that thinks and can breathe. Those are the only two things that are required for this particular practice. And as for helping folks out, let's see. Let's go with let's go with actually I'll go with it. This one was one that was on the fly, and it was actually last Saturday. So this is a fresh one. And so I'll actually share her name too because it was a podcast host. So her name's Charisse, and we did a podcast recording yesterday, so that's going to be out in the future. And we were just having a casual conversation beforehand just to see if we had good vibes and to have a conversation. And I was telling her about my work, and she made this particular statement because she runs teams. She works with a team. And she said a particular statement being, I'm going to paraphrase it. It was, I want to hold my team. I forget exactly how it went. But the main thing was she had a projection where she wanted to hold her team's feet to the fire to be able to make decisions and to be able to pursue their creativity, to be okay to fail kind of idea, because she wanted growth in her crew. And so we took those words, we wrote them down, and this is how the practice goes. Took the words, took the statement, wrote it down, and changed it up. We changed it up where we first got her to read it, to feel it out. What are the feels that came up? And then we adjusted some of the wording where anything that was a projection, we actually turned into a reflection. So I want to hold my feet to the fire. I want to encourage myself to make decisions. And so when we took it from a projection to a reflection, then she saw a different meaning to that narrative. It wasn't something that she wanted to simply see her team do. She wanted to embody it herself because she made. I also picked this statement out specifically because earlier in our conversation she said that she struggled with indecision. And so I had that past information when she made that specific statement, and I said, "Hey, write that down." And so she was able to remove remove the tension. She was able to feel into the statement more, and she was able to see the evidence that she is decisive, that she does hold herself accountable, that she is that authority. And we were able to find the information and the data to be able to back up her statement. And that's where we created true affirmations. And affirmations are based on evidence. My definition of wishful thinking is affirmations without the evidence to back it up. That's why if we are downloading 102 affirmations, say these every day for the next 30 days, and you're going to change who you are, those are someone else's affirmations. Similar to adopting society's narratives. We can't simply adopt affirmations and just magically become the person that we expect ourselves to be. And so we were able to have with certainty or to show her a deeper sense of self. And that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
And we talked about it on her podcast, and it was very cool that it was an awesome conversation. She's like, because it was about a week, so there's a solid integration period between the two conversations, and she found herself going into that, removing that soft talk, having that decisiveness, and she feels it in her heart, like she feels it in her body, the difference.
Absolutely, because the one thing that our brains yearn for is control. And if you can just grasp onto something that you have an influence over, that will actually change, the way you view situations and, circumstances. Now, for those that will be interested in maybe learning a little bit more about what it is that you do and how they can maybe get some of those really, really good vibes from you, what would be the best way or the best place that they can go to and get started on their journey, Kyle?
That's cool. If they want to check out my work and what I'm all about, clarityconsultant.ca. That is my website. And then my social media handles, and it's anywhere, is Dapper Dude Kyle, DapperDudeKyle. And if you want to have a conversation, Instagram is my fastest response time.
Absolutely. I'll definitely make sure that all those links are in the show notes so that people can actually get started with that journey. Now, when we started, Kyle, you introduced us to the Kyle of the one that wrote a post on the 1st of January 2015, right? And you put out your ask there to social media and things of that nature, and 10 years later, you're a whole different person, and you've got a whole different outlook and outtake to life. So if we were probably just sitting together today waiting for this podcast, and you started scrolling through your social media and you came across that post, what would you tell this young Kyle?
Oh, man. I would probably send him a DM and be like, yo, I got you. Let's have a conversation. That would probably be what it would be. Yeah.
Absolutely. And obviously I think with this video today, you literally have got you to a lot of people, because so many people don't quite know where to get started or what it is that to do. And just that whole breathing thing that you shared with us, that when you notice that if you're breathing high and tight, you're in flight mode, and if you really want to go in flow, see, just things like that. And the fact that if you can think and breathe, then this can actually work on you, because so many people try to put so much distance between them and the life that they can possibly live, and start putting excuses. And I like the fact that you've just literally told us that excuses sound best to the man or woman that's saying them. To the rest of us, it's just that, an excuse, so thank you so much. But obviously people might be thinking, oh, okay, so this is all right, but that was so 2025. They might be listening in the future, and maybe things have changed. We no longer have screens. People are now watching things through their Neuralink or whatever it is. How do you stay updated with maybe latest developments in the field? Because I know this is something humans would never change. We're talking about, our primal brain, and I don't think within the next 10, 15, 20 years things would have changed drastically unless we've all just become robots with saber tooth, and we now the saber tooth tigers that we've always been running away from. How are you integrating new knowledge into your practice and staying relevant?
I stay I stay up to date on the things that I see evolving as of now. Because I think that when we can look at what we have interest in and see probabilities of where the things can be going, then we can have an estimate or take a guess as what to see into the future. Because we can see into the future by looking at the past as well. And so, man, it's just sticking to the things that I think will just be useful in the future. Micro education businesses, I think that's going to be huge. I think that the mental health space is going to be more so veered towards collaboration rather than authorization or authority. I also think that people are desiring more autonomy rather than dependence. They want to be sovereign. And with that, I think that a lot of things that will be decentralized are going to prosper and encourage growth while taking out the systematic, structural, negative areas. I think that there's going to be more good than negative. I think there's going to be more folks pursuing something cool because I do see us in a growth part. I don't think we're close to our own demise just yet. I think we still have a long ways to go. I think that we have a really good opportunity to be on an upward trend really quick.
Absolutely. And I think we're just literally on a journey back to ourselves. The only things that might seem like they are dissolving in front of us is just the systems and gates that the gatekeepers had put in our way that we're crushing through.
Mm,
If you really notice, most of the things that might seem like they're breaking is only stuff that was made to restrict us from the actual growth. Okay, see, I'm a marketer, and if you notice, things like social media were put in a place just to throttle the growth of people, but some of them are being taken out of our space. But then that doesn't mean we cannot connect still. It's just
mhm.
the systems, processes that were put in that are dissolving. Human beings are always going to be thriving, and the fact that those gatekeepers are dissolving, it makes it look like what we have is the thing that is but we still gonna thrive, we're still gonna prosper, like you say. And
Totally.
I mean, I think we just opened
I,
another can of worms there. Yeah.
one more thing I want to add to is I think our turnover of trends is quicker as well. Like
Mm.
we adopt and let go of trends quicker. So I see that as like, so let's say there's like the one side that you mentioned, where it's the structured system,
Yeah.
where it's actually something that's organized, that has something like there's cooperation and collaboration.
Yeah.
This is just like I'm trend hopping. I'm going from this thing to this thing to this thing, and they're not even paying attention to this, but they're just like going along. I think it's the like distractions is those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's all happening, and as our brains just crave some sort of stability, but like you say, everything is happening at the speed of light. And this is the reason why you need to jump on and, start breathing and thinking, just like what Kyle has mentioned, because once you know that you're okay within whatever you're doing, you can then plug yourself into whatever the next thing would be without taking away from who you are. Now, Carl, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call. I mean, you sharing your insights and your experiences with us today. I mean, your journey from obviously the culinary arts, you might not have realized that all of this was a lead up to where you're at right now, because now you literally are helping people blend ingredients that they already have, their breath and their mindset, into the best version of who they can be. So thank you for cooking with us today.
Thank you, dude, for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are watching right now, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, you could have been doing other things, but you chose to spend time with me and Kyle today. And if you found value in today's conversation, I just encourage you to maybe rewatch this episode, because so much was packed into the last, say, 45 minutes, and you might have just been listening. But I think if you now listen back, knowing what to look out for, you will be able to grab as many nuggets of gold as possible. But if you got everything that you wanted in the one hit, I encourage you to share this with somebody that might benefit from Kyle's expertise. The reason why we're saying this is because a lot of people are just doing, and having based on what it is that's in front of them. And this could be the one thing that might actually change their trajectory. And if somebody has shared this video with you, just be kind enough and say thank you to them, because they literally have shown you a path where you literally can sort of get away from the victim mentality that you would have been swimming in. And I can't thank Kyle enough for the time and the links that he's given us in the show notes. If you want to connect with him, especially like you said on Instagram, just jump onto the links in the show notes below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more insightful content like this. But I want you to remember one thing: embracing clarity and defeating the victim mentality can actually unlock your true potential. Until next time, bye for now.